Well, hi. My clock says 12 o'clock and we have so much to cover, so I don't think we can wait up any longer. Let's get started. Of course, have some housekeeping to do first. Thank you for attending. This is Summer Technology Tune-Up, and the topic today is one of my favorite. It's Excel. We could be here for the rest of the week talking about it, but we've only got 45 minutes to do it, so let's not waste time. All right, well, a little bit about what SCORE is. SCORE is a nationwide nonprofit affiliated with the Small Business Administration. We provide free mentoring and educational services like this. The Minnesota chapter, which I'm a proud member of, has nearly 90 volunteers serving Manatee and Sarasota counties for 50 years. Last year, we were awarded the Diamond of Excellence Award, which is the highest accomplishment that a chapter can achieve. Since its founding in 1964, SCORE has assisted over 11 million clients and small businesses. Very proud of that. It doesn't really matter where you are in your business process, whether you're just researching and planning, thinking about a startup, or whether you're actually opening one, or you want to grow your business, or perhaps you're thinking about exiting or closing your business. Wherever you are in the process, a mentor might be able to help you. So you can go to our website and apply for it. That website is minnesota.score.org. When you go there, you're going to see that there are a couple of options for you to request a mentor, or find a workshop like this and sign up for them, or look for podcasts that we have recorded and check out the resources in our library. We have an extensive list of taped webinars. And then we need to, of course, thank our sponsors and community partners who help us keep the lights on and make everything possible. So a little bit about me. I don't think I said my name yet. I'm Diane McKeever. Sometimes my title is CPP, or Certified Patient Person. I owned a software training company, and this is what I did every day for 30 years, is teach people about software. In fact, in that time period, I taught over 100,000 participants in the United States and in Europe. About 20 years ago, I started adding website design and graphic design services. 10 years ago, I became certified as a social media marketing professional. And right now, I'm proud to say that I am a certified SCORE mentor specializing in web design and social media. And I'm also the educational chairman. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, yes, of course, we're going to talk about Excel. We're going to start at the beginning. I always like to start there. I don't like to lose people along the way. So we're going to do a little overview. We're going to edit cell contents. We're going to be using some functions and creating some formulas ourselves. We're going to be working with the fill handle. And if you don't know what that magical tool is, you'll find out. We're going to be working with data files for a little bit, such as filtering and freezing panes. I hope that you all received an email from me in the last day with the file that I'm going to be using. If you didn't, I'm giving you my email address in a moment. You can email me and I'll be happy to send it out to you. Also, our assistant, when she sends out the link for the video later today or tomorrow, she will include that. So if you don't have the file, not a big deal, you will be getting it. All right, so some things that might help you. Firstly, I really recommend that you take notes. It always surprises me when people come into seminars and they don't have a pencil or paper anywhere to be seen, and I guess they hope that they'll remember everything I say in 45 minutes. There are tip cards on my website. My website is dianemckeever.com. You're welcome to download as many of the tip cards as you'd like. You will be receiving, as I mentioned, a video of this presentation. My book, 100 Amazing Computer Tips, is available on Amazon, and you're welcome to go there and check it out. And lastly, this is what I mentioned. This is my email address, diane.mckeever@scorevolunteer.org. And after the seminar, I will, if you email me that you haven't gotten this file, let me know and I will send it off so that you can start practicing, because one of the most important things that you have to do after this seminar is to practice. It's not something that you can just learn or see once and be able to do. So let's get started. I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I will share my Excel screen. Here we are. All right. Hope everybody can see that. Well, I'm assuming everybody can. There we go. First thing I noticed, I was reviewing the video from last week, and I noticed that I forgot to zoom my screen, and that's really important. I want you to be able to see what I'm doing very easily. So I'm going to zoom. I'm going to hold down the control key on my keyboard, and I'm just going to roll the wheel of my mouse. You can do this in virtually every Microsoft program, and it will enlarge your screen. So that should make it a little bit easier for you to see. Now, of course, if you've looked at Excel before, you know that it's divided into columns, which are the vertical units, and rows, which are the horizontal units. And at the intersection of every column and every row is a cell. And that cell, every cell, has a unique cell address. And you can see here in the upper left side of your screen, just above the row number 1, it displays for me the cell address of the active cell. So I've created just a little income statement. It's kind of a it's a cash flow. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a cash flow document where we'll be putting in some income and expenses and putting in some simple formulas. One of the things that you'll notice that as I enter in numbers, and let's put in some bogus numbers for it, and let's say our income is 4,000 and our salary, our salary is 4,000. Oh, the first time we get to use this. You see that when we, I've typed this in the wrong place, and I could certainly delete that and type it in again in the right place. But one of the things I want you to be aware of is what your mouse looks like in Excel. It's going to have 3 distinct characteristics. One is the plus sign, and the plus sign is used when we're selecting cells and we're selecting a group of cells, we see the plus sign. But when you move your mouse to the outer edge of a cell, do you see that your mouse changes into a 4-headed arrow with a pointer attached to it? And whenever you see this, it means that you're going to be able to move something. So as I started to say, I could delete that and type it in the right location, or I could just drag it and drop it into the right location. This is particularly helpful if you started wrong and you've got a whole bunch of numbers. If all of these numbers I missed by one and I wanted to move them, I'd be able to highlight it, put my mouse on the outer edge, drag and drop, and it would be in its new location. So I'm just going to undo that because that was fine. So that was a nice happenstance. I didn't mean to do that, but that worked out well. So my commission for the first month, let's say it's going to be 300, and my investments are going to be 750. Oh, keyboard is not working. 750. Interest income is going to be 125. Doesn't really matter what these numbers are, right? But have you noticed that as I've been typing in these numbers, the labels have become truncated because the column A, is not wide enough to accommodate them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my mouse on the vertical line that separates A column from B column. And you can see that when I'm right in the right location, I have a double-headed arrow, left and right arrow. I could hold down the mouse and drag, but I don't really know how wide it needs to be. So instead of dragging, I'm just going to double click, and it makes A column the best fit for all of the information in that column. So double clicking there is a good idea. All right, we've got some numbers, and I think I'd like to add up this group of numbers. One of the features of the Home tab, and remember last week, if you were here for Word, we talked about the structure of commands. We have tabs going across the top. Currently, I'm looking at the Home tab. Within the tab, when you click on a tab, you see a ribbon of options. Within the ribbon, you can see that they are divided into groups. And I'm going to come all the way over here to the editing group. And one of the options in the editing group is auto sum. So again, if you're taking notes, I would say on the Home tab in the editing group, click the auto sum button. When I click the auto sum button, you see I was in the cell where I wanted the total. So when I click the auto sum button once, it will assume correctly in this case that I want to add the numbers above. And you can see it's put in equals sum, opening paren, B4, colon, B7. And it's put a highlight around those cells to just confirm that that is in fact the cells that it's suggesting that I want to add. So again, that's selected correctly. So I'm going to enter that. So the idea here is that if I change any of these numbers, if perhaps this should have been 400 rather than 300, when I make that change, the total, the gross income, is going to reflect that. So let's do that again down here. Again, I click in the cell where I'm going to have the total. I'll go up to the Home tab, editing group, click the auto sum button once, and I could either enter or I could click the auto sum button again, and it will enter that information. So I think we're going to do our little cash flow for 6 months. So I think I'd like to actually have month labels along here. We'll start with this month, and I'm going to type in AUG 2021. So you can imagine I need to type in September and October and so forth, but I'm going to introduce you to the fill handle. The fill handle is this little teeny tiny box in the lower right side of the active cell. Every active cell has one if you look carefully. And when you move your mouse onto it, do you see that your mouse changes? Now, we've already talked about the plus sign that's used for selecting. We've already talked about the pointer with a four-headed arrow that's used for moving. But when your mouse is on the fill handle, it becomes a plus sign. And if I hold down the mouse at this point and drag across, do you see the little label that's appearing? October 21, November 21. So this is a series that the program is filling in for me. And if I continued along, as you can imagine, it will just repeat the series. Extend the series, I should say, rather than repeat it. Because you see what happened when I got to December 21, it then started with January 22. So that's a handy feature. That's one use of the fill handle. Another use will be if I wanted to take all of these numbers and the formula, and I wanted those two filled in for, oops, got stuck there somewhere. If I wanted to fill these numbers across so I didn't have to type them again, I could highlight them, go to the fill handle, and pull across. And now all of those numbers are repeated, and then I'd be able to go in and modify it. So my commission for September, I anticipate that I'm going to have many more sales and I will have a larger commission. And in October, I'm going to have an even larger commission. And in November, I'm going to slack off a little, and December, well, we know that we hardly work at all. So, and January is going to be a hot month, so we'll increase that to 900. So you can see that as I'm making changes to this, of course, it is changing the totals because of the sum function. When you click on a cell, you don't really know if the number in this cell is as a result of a formula or did somebody type it. The only way that you'll know is by checking this area across the top of your screen. This area is called the formula bar. When you click in a cell, it will show you what is in that cell. When I click on a cell that has a formula, of course, the formula is displayed in the formula bar, but in the worksheet itself, we can see the result of that. All right, I think it's time for us to create a formula. Actually, what we have been using at this moment have been functions, right? The sum function we've used a few times, but now we're going to create a formula. And here's the rules for formula creation. Rule number one is that it begins with the equal sign. So as soon as I type the equal sign, a few things happen. My formula bar starts to activate. I have a red X and a green check. I have this little fx, which if I wanted to insert a function in here, that's another way of doing it. But I'm not going to insert a function. I'm just going to create a little formula, because what do I want here? I want to take my gross income, and from that, I want to subtract my total expenses. So because I typed the equal sign, I'm going to be able to point and click on this gross income number. And you see up in the formula bar, that has become part of the formula. Now I will add an operator. And of course, you know that the operators are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. If you have a keyboard with an extended keyboard with all the nice numbers on it, you'll see that keyboard, that part of the keyboard also has the plus, the dash for the minus, the asterisk for multiplication, and the slash for division. That's where I like to go to put in my operators. So I'm going to type a little dash, and then I'm going to click on total expenses. So I'm taking my gross income and I'm subtracting my expenses. And when I hit the enter key, I can see the result of that formula. Whenever you're putting in a formula or using a function, it's really important that you just take a little step back and say, does that seem logical? Because just because Excel says that that's the result of your formula, you may have had a problem with your formula. You may have done it backwards and it may not be giving you the answer that you want. So always check your result to make sure that that's logical. So I would like this same formula all the way across. And as you can imagine, I'm going to head right to my fill handle. Loving the fill handle. Hold down the mouse and drag. And there we go. Now, how did it do that? How did it take that formula? Why didn't it just repeat that? Well, if I look in my formula bar, I can see that this original formula, the one that we created, said equals B8 minus B16. When I click in C column, do you see that it's changed the formula? It now says C8 minus C16. And we can imagine that if I continue looking in D column and E column and F and G, that in fact, the formula has changed. And this fact that it has changed is called a relative reference. It's important to kind of put that in the back of your mind, a relative reference, because we'll be working in a little while with something that isn't a relative reference, something that we call an absolute reference. And it will help if you understand a relative reference. So a relative reference is one where the reference to the cells changes based upon where the formula now resides. So I think we'll have another little function going on here. We'll say 6 month total. So here I can see that that is not going to really fit in this cell. And I have a couple of options. Some people actually would type 6 month in one cell and the word total in the other. I don't really like that option. That will come back to bite you once we get into pivot tables and the like, because if you have other cells, other columns that maybe are yearly total or 3-year total or 2-year total, but total is the name that's in the bottom row, when we do pivot tables, you're going to have a lot of fields that have the word total and it won't make sense to you. So one other option that I would use here is wrapping text. So again, I'm still on the Home tab. I'm in the alignment group. And if I click on wrap text, it wraps the text. Now, of course, that row now is taller than the other rows, isn't it? But that's what it had to do in order to wrap the text. So I'm happy with that. And I might actually just center that just because I can. So probably the next thing I'd like to do is add these numbers across. So I'm going to head up to my AutoSum, click it once. Oh, that's brilliant. Click it twice. And it is now set in that location. And now I'm going to fill down. Now here's a little handy thing. Now we just learned about the fill handle, so I'm going to give you a little easier way in some cases to use the fill handle. When we're filling down, we can put our mouse on the fill handle and give it a little click, click, a little double click, and it will fill all the way down. I don't know why I decided to stop there. Maybe it thought that I was going to fill that across. But if you ever had Accounting 101, you know that it doesn't matter whether you add numbers down or add numbers across, it should be the same. I had a client who, for a year and a half, took out his calculator and double checked every single calculation in Excel because he didn't trust it. I probably trusted Excel a lot more than I trusted his handy dandy calculator. So again, I'm going to click in this cell. I want the numbers added across, and I'm going to click on my AutoSum button once. That's a beautiful formula. I'm going to click it again. And then I'm going to double click. See how you have to be very careful, don't you? Because your cursor, unless you have a very steady hand, your cursor changes all the time. So it's that fill handle I'm looking for, and I'm actually going to drag it down. And in this case, I'll take the formula and fill it across because, as I said, it doesn't really matter whether I'm doing one or the other. So now we've got this incredible mosaic of formulas going on here that are calculating all kinds of things. I want to do a little bit of formatting, just a very simple formatting. So again, on the Home tab, I spend a lot of time on the Home tab. But on the Home tab, this time I'm going to go to the number group. And in the number group, on the Home tab, in the number group, I have some predefined formats that are easy for me to use. If I want dollar signs on all of these numbers, I click on the dollar sign option. If I would like commas, just commas, no dollar signs, I can click on the comma option. In either case, though, I get 2 decimal places, and I don't really want any decimal places. So I'm going to continue further on this number area, and you can see that I can increase decimals. I don't think I want any more, or here, I can decrease decimals. So I'll take off those decimals. Now I've got numbers that are formatted. All of these numbers, if I were to change any of them, all of these numbers are still going to display a comma with no decimals. Just a little bit of formatting here. Often in worksheets like this, you would like to indent some of this text. Under income, we'd like to indicate that these are categories under income. So what we're going to do is, again, from the Home tab, the alignment group, we have a wonderful feature, which is increase indent. And I'm going to click it once, and it will indent just those items. The same will be true of our expenses. I'd like to indent this a little bit. So I'll highlight the cells that I'm going to indent and click the increase indent. I can indent this further if you'd like it to be separated further from the margin, or I can move it back out by using the decrease indent option. I think that we should give this whole part of the worksheet a title. So we're going to put in Harry's cash flow worksheet. Oops, worksheet is what I said. And so there it is in the upper corner. A lot of people like their headings like this across the top of the worksheet. So what we're going to do is, because we type that in the left cell, we're going to be able to highlight a group of cells and then click on the Home tab alignment, click on Merge and Center. So instead of that being 7 individual cells, it's now one cell that spans 7 columns, and the information is merged and centered. I don't want to spend a lot of time doing formatting, but again, from the Home tab, we've got font. We can make this bold. We can change the color of the font. We can give it a background color if we want. We can make this as garish as we want, but I don't want to spend a lot of time doing that. I think all of you can figure out from just a little bit of direction that we've seen how you can make things bold and so forth. That's also from the Home tab, the font group, we have borders. That's a bottom border. I could highlight these cells and say I'd like a bottom border there, and I could highlight these cells and make a bottom border there. There's all kinds of things that we could do to make this look gorgeous. All right, when you open up your worksheet, you should notice that at the bottom left side of your worksheet, it says Start, Pizza, and Policy Data. These are 3 sheets within a book. This document that I'm working with is called a workbook. And within the workbook, you can have as many sheets as you want. I have a workbook that I've been working on for years. At the end of each year, before we meet with our accountant, my husband says, all right, well, give me your numbers for our tax purposes. Let me know what your income was, what your expenses were. And so I open up my file. My worksheet is actually called Income Worksheet. And within it, I have income workbook actually. And within that document, I have sheets for every year. When it's time for me to do a new sheet, all I do is click on the last sheet that I did, and I want to duplicate it so that I would be easily just go in and delete the information. All of my formulas will remain, and I would be able to start anew. And the way that I could do that is I could click on the plus, but the plus is just going to give me a new blank sheet. That's not really exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to delete that sheet. What I really like to do is take this sheet, perhaps, if we imagined that this was my income sheet, what I really like to do is take that sheet and duplicate that sheet so that I could go in and make changes to it. The control key on your keyboard is very handy. We used it once already, right? When I wanted to zoom in on the sheet, I held down the control key and I zoomed in. The control key is also a duplicate key oftentimes. You might want to try it and look into some of the options for it. But if I put my mouse on the sheet tab, hold down the control key and drag a little bit to the right, do you see that it has duplicated this? It's kind of hard to tell which sheet I'm in right now, but it duplicated it. It has the same name with a little number 2 next to it. And this would allow me to double click on that little sheet tab and say new policy data. That would allow me to keep the original sheet for policy data and duplicate it. Now it's duplicated all of the attributes of that. And that's really important. I once went into a client, and this poor fellow, his job was to every day open up a file that he continued to work on and create a new sheet and copy the information and paste it in and change the orientation and change the print area and do all kinds of things to get it to work correctly. And so I watched him do that, and I said, well, you know, that I'm impressed that you got it down to a short series of steps, but what if you just duplicated the whole sheet? Because now all of those attributes of the sheet are carried along with it. So that's really a great little hint. I hope you enjoy that. Okay, so this is another little worksheet that we're going to work on for a little while. It's kind of similar, so I don't want to spend a lot of time. But here's my pizza business, and let's just start by taking this, my pizza business, and I'm going to want to center this. So let's do that. I'll highlight it. Remember, we used the merge and center, and that helped very nicely. So if we wanted to find out what our cost of goods are for our pizza business, we'd have to know or guess at what we feel our pizza revenue is going to be. So if we had $5,000 in revenue and the revenue from our soda sales is going to be 250, we'd get total revenue. And of course, I'm in that cell. I'm going to click on the auto sum button. Oh, that's a beautiful thing. I'll enter it and I'll fill it. Here's our cost of goods. What did it cost to make our pizza? Flour is not that expensive, so we'll say that was about 300. Our soda cost are 50. And what a cardboard box is going for these days. Let's say 100. And again, we will add these numbers up. And we want to find out what our gross profit is. So you can imagine we're going to take our total revenue, we're going to subtract our cost of sales, and find that. Remember what I told you about creating formulas? How is it that we start? I can hear you all saying the equal key. Exactly. We're going to hit the equal key. It equals our revenue. I'm going to type a minus, put in our operator. I'm going to click on the cell for our cost of goods and enter. And again, to make it easy for us, we could then take the fill handle and fill this across. We've got some numbers here. Let's add them up actually first so that we can take that formula. We'll highlight this, use our wonderful fill handle. Do you see how often I use that fill handle? That's an amazing tool that they added some time ago to this program. And then net profit. So what can you imagine? Can you imagine what we're going to do here? We're going to create our own little formula, right? So we're going to type the equal sign. It equals our gross profit. From that, we're going to subtract our total expenses. Look to see if it makes sense. That's about right. I don't need to take out a calculator. It's an estimate that I'm doing. And I'll take that and fill it across. We'll do a quick with our auto sum. Now I'm actually going to fill it all the way down. Oops, I dropped it along the way, but I'll fill it the rest of the way. I don't need those here, so I'll just delete them. Sometimes it's easier to, rather than stopping and starting, to just do it all the way and then delete it where you don't need it. Okay, at this point, I would say, are there any questions? But I can't hear you, so I think I'll just say there are no questions because I haven't seen any in the Q&A queue. If there are questions, feel free to put them in that, and I hope to get to them before the end of our session. I'm going to select this group of cells, and you'll note that I don't tend to hold down the mouse and drag. I don't find that particularly effective, especially if I have a large worksheet. This isn't particularly large, but one way of selecting cells is to click on the first cell, move my mouse, I'm not holding it down, but move my mouse to the last cell. And before I click in that last cell, I'm going to hold down the Shift key in my keyboard. The Shift key allows me to select a range of cells. I don't like the way these cells are formatted. They kind of are formatted in a number of different ways. So I'm going to click on the comma button, make them consistent, turn off the zeros. I know it's dollars. I don't need dollar signs. And now they look tidier to me. Remember, I was just talking about the Shift key. So if you click on one cell, you hold down the Shift key and click on another, it will select that range. Sometimes you need to select a group of cells for whatever reason. Maybe without putting in a formula, you want to be able to select this cell and this cell and this cell and this cell and maybe this cell too. If you want to select cells that are not contiguous like this, then you use the Control key. To do that, you click on a cell, you hold down the Control key, and you click on a second and a third and a fourth, and as many other cells as you like. Now, something interesting is happening when I have a group of cells selected. It doesn't matter if those cells are contiguous or, in this case, discontiguous, non-adjacent. It doesn't make any difference. But if you look in the lower right side of your screen, we're getting some numbers here. Excel is telling me that the average of these 6 cells, because it's telling me that I have 6 cells selected, the count of them is 6. The average of the numbers in them is 1383, and the sum of the numbers in them is 8,300. This is called sum on the fly. It used to be called sum on the fly. That's what they called it when they introduced it. I'm assuming they're still calling it that. But this is something that's available whenever you have more than one cell. Do you see that I've got one cell selected and I don't see any data down there? But once you have more than one cell selected, that area becomes active and it's telling me the average count and sum. If I right click on this, I can actually add other options there, such as the min, the max, and the numerical count. Just the cells that have numbers in them. In this case, I would be able to turn that on. And so if I selected a group of cells and some did not have numbers, those would not be put into the count. Or actually they were, I'm not sure. They shouldn't have been. Okay, so that's called sum on the fly. That comes in handy. Your boss comes into the office and says, I know normally you don't add those numbers up, but just could you tell me what the sum of these numbers is? So instead of putting a little function over here and having to do some gyrations, just highlight the cells, say, oh, yep, the total of that is 8,000, and you'll impress the heck out of them or her by being able to do that so quickly. All right, there is one question, let's see. Oh, genealogy, this individual, Debbie, works with European dates, which is not the same as the US. Well, what you have to do is, of course, come up with a strategy as to how the dates are going to be entered. And as long as you're consistent, it doesn't make any difference. We can format those numbers in any way. Excel really is smart and will get that, get the trend of what you're doing. Okay, let me close that. All right, let's work on our last worksheet. This is policy data. I'm going to click on it and I'll go up to the top. So I've got a policy number. I've got something going on in here. When I click on the cell, I can see that up in my formula bar, there appears to be a date. But the pound sign, whenever you see the pound sign, it's telling you that the column is not wide enough to display all of the numbers. And then some odd thing is going on in F column as well. Again, that's as a result of the column not being wide enough. If you're working with data, maybe you have exported data from some database, maybe it's your clients, maybe it's all of the sales in the last year. When you export, it's comma separated and you open it up in Excel. It will ask you if you want to convert the document. It might ask you if you want to convert the document. And if you do, then you put in what separates, what identifies the various fields. Typically, it's going to be a comma that you would indicate. It's a checkbox that you would indicate that it's separated by commas, and it would parse out all of the information into as many columns as necessary in order to display the information. When you look at that worksheet, you're going to find that the columns all come in as a fixed width. Whatever was going on in the database, it doesn't matter. Some columns were wider than others. When it comes into Excel, it's a fixed width. So the first thing that we need to do is change the width of the columns. Remember how I told you earlier that we could double click on the column between the column headings, and that would make the column the best fit. And that does work, and we're certainly going to use it in just a moment, but we really want to change all of these columns to be the best fit. So the first thing I'm going to do is select the whole worksheet. Can you see where my mouse is? It's above the number 1 and to the left of the letter A. And this box doesn't seem to have any purpose to it, except that when I click on it, it selects the entire worksheet. No matter how large your data area is, it will select the entire worksheet. So if I were to then manually change the width of the columns, I always like to start by making them really wide, and then going in and double clicking on the vertical line. And you see that it has changed all of the columns to make them the best fit for the largest piece of information that's in them. That largest piece might in fact be the column heading, or it might be some other information. This is really helpful, this whole idea of double clicking to make it best fit, because you could have data, if you're doing it manually and you're changing the width of a column manually, there could be data much further down in this column that you would not be able to see, and you wouldn't know how wide to make the column. So we like to select the whole worksheet, go between any columns. Now, first I did make the columns wider. I like to start by doing that because sometimes Excel will have the text wrap and I don't necessarily want to do that. So I'll manually just drag them to make them wider and then double click on any of the vertical lines and it will fix that. All right, so now I've got my worksheet identified. If I wanted to select just the data in here, I told you earlier that I could click in the first cell. And do you remember that I could scroll on down, however long I need to do. And I hope you remember what I'm going to hold down on my keyboard if I wanted to just select this data. Oh my gosh, I'm going down forever, scrolling. And when I get to the end, remember if I held down the Shift key and clicked, oof, okay, I finally have this all selected. Well, that's a fairly tedious operation, and perhaps I wanted to do that in a more efficient way. Here's the way I would do it. I would combine a couple of keyboard shortcuts that I showed you already and introduce a couple of new ones. So if I wanted to navigate to an area, let's start with that. If I am in cell A1 and hold down the Control key and hit the down arrow, it will get me to the last cell in my worksheet, the last row. So row 501 is our last row. I'm going to go back up to the top. Remember, it's Control. Actually, remember, I didn't tell you this already. It's Control, and the up arrow would get me to the top of the row, or the column in this case. So if I wanted to go to the end of the state column, I could do Control and down arrow, and I'm down at the row 501 again, Control and the up arrow, and I'm at the top of the column. If I want to go back to the very beginning to cell A1, it's actually Control and Home I hope you know where the home key is on your keyboard. All right, so we've talked about the shift key, and the shift key is going to allow me to select through an area. We've talked about the control key, and the control key is going to navigate to an area. I'm going to put those two keys together. So I'm in cell A1. I'm going to hold down shift and control, and I'm going to hit the end key, the END key. And what that has done is it has selected everything from A1 to the last cell in my data. Reason I'm doing this is I'm going to actually start using this data, working with this data as, oops, I hope that didn't make my screen disappear. Oh, it's paused. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Oh. Oh, oh. Okay, I think we're back again. I was trying to move this around. Okay, so we're back again and we've got our data selected. I was going somewhere, but I don't remember where it was. So we'll start that again. So I'm going to go home. I'm going to go up to cell A1. Remember, I can navigate by holding down the control key and striking the home key. And I'm back to the very beginning of my worksheet. Oh, I know what I was going to say. We are going to be using filtering in just a moment. And filtering is just one of the most incredible, powerful tools in Excel. And I have just a few minutes to talk to you about this, but let me talk quickly. So I'm going to select the area. Excel doesn't always select the whole area, I find. If there's a break, if there's a blank row or a blank column, it doesn't see that that's contiguous information. So before I turn on filters, I always like to make sure that the entire area is going to be filtered. So I'm going to do Shift Control and the End key. Remember, that will select my entire area. And now that I'm assured that all of my data is going to be included, I'm going to go to the Data tab. And from the Data tab, Sort and Filter group, I'm going to click on Filter. And it doesn't look like anything has happened, but let's go back home. Let's go back up to the top. And I can see that one thing that's different is that at the top of every column, I now have a pull-down menu. These pull-down menus are going to be valuable to me because it will allow me to very easily sort my information. And as this name implies, this is a filter that we've turned on. It's also going to allow me to filter the information so that I only see a subset of my data. So maybe I'll sort it by region. By clicking the down arrow, do you see that it has put all the unique values, Central, East, Midwest, and Northeast? And I would be able to choose maybe all of them except the Central, or all of them except the Central or Midwest, or I'll turn off the select all because maybe I just want the Northeast for whatever reason. It doesn't matter what order they're in. What's going to happen is that it's filtered all of the records that aren't in the Northeast. I know that there's a filter on because of the row headings. Do you see how they're blue now? Somebody once gave me quite a hard time and said, well, it wasn't blue. They were, I don't know, green or brown or something. I think that person was colorblind because they sure look blue to me. But in any event, it just means that by putting on a filter, all you're doing is showing a subset of the information. I can add filters to as many of the columns as I need. And I know which column has a filter applied because look at the little icons that are different at the column headings. If there's no filter, it's just a little triangle. If there is a filter that's applied, it looks more like a funnel. So I can see that there's a filter in location and there's a filter in region. At this point, I would be able to sort it by any information, maybe business type. I'm going to sort it A to Z, and just the subset of records that I can see are sorted by that information. I'm going to show you one more thing, and then I think we're going to have to wrap up because it's 10 minutes up. I can't believe that 50 minutes has gone by. All right, the one piece of information that I want to help you with is when working with lists like this, the most important thing is the row heading at the top. And when you scroll down, that's the first thing that you lose. So one of the features that they've added is called freezing panes. And you can go to the View tab. From the View tab, way over here in the Window group, it says Freeze Panes. And they enhanced this a few versions ago, that they added, do you just want to freeze the top row or the first column or the first column, or do you want to have control over where the freeze is? I'm going to choose that option because let's say that I want to be able to see columns A, B, and C and row 1 as I scroll. So I'm going to click in this column. It's going to freeze everything above it and to the left of it. And then I'm going to choose freeze panes and this first option. Keep rows and columns visible while the rest of the worksheet scrolls based on the current selection. So that's why it was important that we selected a specific cell. And so now, not only when I scroll down, isn't that so much easier to see, but if I scroll to the right, I will still be able to see columns A, B, and C. And here's just a fast little tip on scrolling right. You know that we've got the scroll bar down at the bottom. I find it annoying in Excel to find the scroll bar all the time. So one interesting thing is that the button, that the wheel on your mouse is actually a button. You know, not too many people know that. But if I click the wheel on the mouse, do you see what happens? I get a little navigation and I'm just moving my mouse, not holding anything down, just moving my mouse gently to the right of this little icon. The further I go from the icon, the faster it scrolls, so it can get away from you. You don't want to get too far from this. If I move my mouse over back on the, I should be navigating now to the left. I think I got pretty far afield, so it's taking a while. But it's kind of interesting that you can go up and down or left or right just by clicking the wheel on your mouse. Who knew that? Try that out in other programs in addition to Excel. You can give that a go when you are on a website too. Okay, I want to get up to the top of my document again. So remember, it's Control Home. And I'm back up at the top. I'm going to take off these filters. Remember, we got filters from the Data tab. I could remove a filter one at a time from any of these. I could clear a filter one at a time, or from the Data tab, I have clear and all the filters are off. Row numbers turn back to being black and I see all of my data. All right. Oh, my goodness. I wanted to stay longer with you and talk about more, but what I hope that you would do is, I believe that you're going to be getting an evaluation. If you'd like to see more or different Excel features, maybe pivot tables, there's so much more that we could go into. Let me know if you'd like to see more, and let me know if there are particular topics that you'd like to see. I look at all of the reviews, the evaluations, to see what kind of direction I should go in with you. You also have my email address, so feel free to contact me that way. So I'm going to share again. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. Let's see if I can bring up this. Okay, good. So questions. I didn't see, oh, there's one question. I'll answer that in a moment. But if you have to run, I just want to thank you for coming, and you will be getting a survey maybe today or tomorrow. If you could complete that, it would really be helpful. I'm the new education chairman, so I am trying to revitalize and add topics that people are interested in, and the best source of topics is you. So if you would take a moment and do that, I really would love it. If you feel that you know somebody or you would benefit from a SCORE mentor, go to our website, minnesota.score.org, and apply for a mentor. There's only one question. Let me see if I can answer it. Do I have references, places, or tutorials for practice? Oh, help. The internet, you know, if you, the thing about Excel that's a little frustrating in trying to get help, tutorials and practices and so forth, is that you don't always know what to ask, right? So that's one of the things that I try and do in these seminars, is to put names to different features of the program, so that when you're looking on the internet, if you say Excel fill handle, you're going to see on YouTube there are 732 videos that people have put together about Excel fill handles. So I would absolutely recommend that you go to the internet. Excel is like a bottomless pit of information. It's so big, it's so powerful. It's going to take a long time for you to really master it. But if you wanted to look at functions and formulas, do a search for that. If you'd like to have a seminar on functions and formulas, just let me know. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I can teach just about every topic that you can throw at me in Excel. So there's no more questions. I want to thank you all for coming. It's been a delight for me. This is what I've done for 30 years, and it's something I love doing. And this is a nice forum that I'm able to share this with you. So if there are no further questions, I'm going to end our seminar, and I'm going to thank you so much for coming. Let's see, how can I do that? Stop sharing and end. All right, thank you all for coming. I hope I get to see you again in the future in another webinar, and have a great day. Bye-bye.